Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure.
You know, it's interesting because I don't get the chance to talk too often to folks who have gone through this whole process and kind of hear what it was like. You get bits and pieces most of the time. I only hear from people who are really angry because they're the ones that chase you, down the street and stuff. And so I thought it would be a good idea as we're getting ready for 5 years this Sunday for Chuck and I both to hear from folks that have gone through this experience and kind of what it was like and what the good points were, what the points that could be improved were, and all the rest of that. So I thank you for taking the time to do this and to relive it, because I'm sure it's not like the thing you want to love to relive.
Well, we actually stayed. We were one of the very few in this neighborhood that stayed for the storm, and that was no fun at all.
Yeah, well, you didn't listen to me. You stayed.
Well, it was voluntary. I remember it was under voluntary.
You still didn't listen to me. It was voluntary.
You didn't tell me to get the hell out of the house.
That's right. I did it the year before, and I got everybody yelling at me, so I tried to be a little bit nicer this time. But so what was it? First, tell me that. What was it like? I mean, looking where we're sitting, what was it like being here that night?
Originally, my wife and I, originally it wasn't. I was out on the deck, it was raining, I said, this is going to be another one of those storms where nothing's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, I'm not sure if it was when that breach happened in Maniloking or what, but within a half hour, the water was up, the water was coming through the sides of the houses, our car horns went off because, that got shorted out. And I'm like, well, who's beeping our car? And I look out there and the water's like halfway up the car, and I'm like, holy mackerel. And I called the police, and then it was too late then. They said, get to the highest level of your house and just stay there.
Hang out there and wait.
Governor, we had 542 911 calls within that quick time, between the time.
Yeah. Ours was when it was like 20 minutes before they even answered. I said to my wife, they're not even answering. I said, they must be swamped.
It was a crazy night.
Yeah. And then all the I had a boat, a 30-foot sea ray that came right through the deck, almost, because this was down on ground level, and we're watching the boat going, bouncing up and down, just chomping its way through the deck with our big picture window, and I said, that's coming through the window, and that's when I called the police. I said, we got to get out of here.
Well, I remember when we went down to Brigantine on that Wednesday afterwards with the president, and we were walking down a residential street that was across from a marina.
Yeah.
And there were boats in between the houses that were stacked 3 on top of each other.
Really?
Yeah, they had just gotten driven off and they landed on top of each other, and they were in between the houses. I remember the president saying to me, why do people keep their boats there? I go, they don't, Mr. President, they don't. They were down the street and in the marina over there.
Well, everybody's boats ended up on the side of the house, all of these boats, but they weren't stacked up. But
these were like in the marina, they got stacked up. But so that must have been an awful. So did you ever have to? So you left.
We left like the day after. The first people that came by were on a jet ski and a raft, and said, "Would you like to come out?" And as you can hear, my dogs upstairs. I said, "Can I bring the dogs?" They said, "No, there's no room." And I said, "Well, then we're going to stay." And then later on that evening, a big truck with these big tires came through, and they said, "You going to leave?" And I said, "Can I bring my dogs?" They said, "Yep." And then we left. They just brought us to Wawa on 37, and we called her brother.
Did you go to one of our shelters?
No, we went up to her aunt in East Brunswick, but they didn't have electric either. It was like no matter where we went.
Either. Yeah, no. It was 2.8 million homes didn't have electricity, so it was basically 80% of the state had no electricity for a good long time after that. So then, all right, so you're out, and then what happens?
So then her brother picked us up at Wawa. We went up to East Brunswick, stayed there, and then it was like every morning. Yeah, that was a couple of weeks later. We had the snowstorm.
Yeah, the snow, that was fun.
But every morning I woke up and said, please let this just be a horrible dream. I'm like, because we didn't know what to do. We had no cars. We couldn't get anywhere. I'm like, it was so overwhelming. I'm like, what do we do first? So then we decided we're just going to call used car places. That's what I did like the next couple of days, just called to try to find a car. And we finally got a car, and then a couple of days later we got her a car, and then it was start to think about taking care of the house, Right, and so I applied for everything because that's all I could do. I just take my mind off stuff. I said, let's see what's out there. We'll apply. I mean, they said you could have a room, but it was, where was it?
Cherry Hill.
Cherry Hill, which is pretty far. They said we have a hotel that you can stay in. I was like, we'll just stay with relatives. But it was just like I said, it was just so overwhelming. And I applied for the RREM program first, but I originally got denied because they said there are other people who need it more, which I totally agreed with. Because our house was built in '86. we just got a very little bit of water in the house, so we could still live in it. Which when the electric came back on, we did. But then a year later, I got a letter in the mail that said some more money came into the program. We're reconsidering your application, and then I was, these two, Lorraine and Fran got them. They got it first, right from the beginning, because their houses were pretty much destroyed from it,
So Fran, what happened to your house?
Well, my father was living here as a senior, and so he went over to Holiday City to stay with a friend. I was in Connecticut, my sister was in Massachusetts, and we're like, all right, just bring the patio furniture in. I don't know what else could we really have him do. And so he was safe, and that was the biggest thing. And he kept driving every day because this was blocked off, and he kept driving every day. And he's like, I can't get in. And then finally he was like, I'm in. And he was just so upset. And he was like, you guys need to come down here. And me and my sister, and my brother were like, oh boy. So like I called my boss, and I was like, I was working at ESPN. I had a show to do that day, and I was like, I don't know when I'm coming back. I gotta go. And they were like, go, just go, get it taken care of. And we piled down, and it was very like, my grandparents have been down here, I was telling since like the 60s, and like to put all my grandparents' belongings out on the street was, and my grandmother's piano was ruined, and it was just very emotional. And then just, so being so far away, then you feel like you're kind of helpless, like you want to, so, but we knew he was safe, and we knew we had a place, and we had, signed up for RREM, and we were told Path A, go in Path A, and we were like one of the first people in, and we sort of toiled around in Path A for about 2 years of just paperwork. And
Path A was the pre-approved contractors, right?
Yeah, so it was, and I think the biggest takeaway, like, for us was we had rotating project managers, and it was like every couple of months there was a new project manager, and we revised the paperwork, but it was basically the same information, just in different parts of the form. Yeah. So, and they were like, well, send your father to Lakewood, and we're like, no, he's not, like, he's in his 80s. I'm not having him sign anything without one of us present. So it was a lot of logistical stuff for us, and it just took a while. We couldn't even get the demo done. Meanwhile, it was just painful to just see the house there. We were able to do our mold mitigation. We were able to do a little bit of a tear out, but our contractor was not a good contractor. Yeah. It was from out of state. Eventually, we didn't even get past the plan stage with them, and the thing that they supplied us with was.
Did he take off some of your money?
No, we never, you know what, that was a good thing. Money never exchanged hands, which helped us. But at one point I said to my sister, I don't
that was part of the Plan A thing. It was,
yeah.
It's really funny because you'll have, like, when I read stuff now and hear people talk, it shifted, right? So in the beginning we said, okay, we're going to get a flood of kind of unscrupulous contractors into this place because there's going to be so much money. So we should pre-approve all the contractors. Yeah. Then people were saying, I don't like the plans, I don't like the contractor, I want to do something different, I'm an adult, why shouldn't I be able to make these decisions on my own, why are you making these decisions? So then we said, all right, we'll change it. You can go Plan A, or you can go Route A or Route B. Route B was you pick your own contractor and the money exchanges hands, because the reason no money exchanged hands with A was because we paid them directly, right? So then we did go Plan B, and when Plan B starts, then you get a bunch of exactly what we thought would happen. Yeah. You get a lot of people did well.
Yeah.
But then some people that were unscrupulous contractors who stole their money, and we're still indicting people today.
Yeah. Happened to 3 people on this street.
Right. And so
people just left.
What it proves is like 2 things to me. Like, one, there's no perfect way to do it.
No.
Like they're both gonna. It stinks no matter what. Mm-hmm. And secondly, is that the observers in life, and I've learned this in this job, the observers in life will always know better. Mm-hmm. Like when they're not doing it.
Right.
So like when Plan A was going, like, what are you doing, micromanaging government? And then you let everybody go in there and they go, oh, well, look at all these unscrupulous contractors. I'm going, I don't know, man. Like, it's hard, right? And did you go to Plan B then?
Well, we were waiting. And when we originally went and met with the company, we gave them the plan from our eventual builder and what is eventually our house. And we said, this is the house we want. Can you build us this house? So we kind of were like, we had our eye on the contractor we eventually went to the whole time. And in a way, because we were sort of mired in this paperwork and nothing got done outside of the plans, which they eventually lost. But but once we were able to go to Plan B, so we toiled for like 2 years in the program, and then from the time we signed our contract with our contractor Walters, the house was built in a year. So understandable, it was a new program, so we sort of knew there was going to be bumps in the road, and we kind of so while it was frustrating at times, especially having an older parent, we were kind of felt like the clock is ticking and we want to get him back in his house as quickly as possible. But at the end of the day, we have a beautiful home. We just, every March we celebrate our, this is our 1 year anniversary in the house, and we couldn't have done it without the program. So, we are grateful, but we hope that these lessons will help other people.
And that's why we're putting out a book this week on the 5-year anniversary, and part of it is to look back into the things, to chronicle what happened and the damage and the loss, but it's also like a manual for the future. It's like, here are the things that we didn't know that we learned while doing this. And I mean, I filled the book with what I didn't know about all this. It's kind of hard to explain to folks. You wake up the morning of the 30th, right? And here's what you were dealing with this here. You're dealing with the calls you're getting from far away, like, how are you going to handle all of it? And I'm sitting at a table in Trenton with a group of cabinet members who are telling me, I look at the DEP guy and he's saying to me, well, because we have no operating water treatment plants or wastewater treatment plants in the state. The DOT's guy saying 600 state highways are obstructed. Then you look at the folks from health, and they're like, well, we have no power at any of the hospitals. Like, you just go one after another, and you think you're ready, but you're not ready for anything the scope of that. Yeah. And I think what we learned on the RREM program was, the first company that we hired wasn't good. We had 2 bidders to run this thing. We took one, it didn't work. So then we got rid of that one, we hired a new one. And when the second one came in, which was about after a year, things started to get much better. Yeah. And so the paperwork stuff and it's all stuff that I remember hearing, right? New project manager. Oh, the file got lost. You have to refile the papers. Like, it would drive Chuck and I and Rich Constable, who was also at DCA at the time, just insane. And so I'm glad that it ended up the right way it was supposed to. And I do know the program was absolutely necessary, because people would not have been able to get done what they needed to get done without it.
Yeah, I got.
So what happened to you?
Mine really was easy.
Okay.
It really was. My son came up and he and I gutted the house. And then my neighbor was my contractor. He got me in as quick as he could. I went to my daughter's when it happened because she made me leave. I was not leaving.
Good.
Yeah.
Tell your daughter I said thank you.
So no, in fact, I actually vacuumed, took the garbage out. I said, I'm not leaving. Yeah.
She's lived here 40 years.
Here
40 years.
Were they able to recover anything they had to tear?
No.
That was heartbreaking. We went up and down the streets.
Yeah, there was
every
piles
of
garbage.
Piles of garbage.
Yeah. We had the problem of all that debris removal too, to get it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Out to the
But I have to say, I think the town was great.
They
People
did
coming
do a
by,
great
the town
job.
did a great job, because you feel like you're sort of isolated in this
Repeat that
neighborhood.
again.
Well, you're right. I mean, that's what we worked with all the towns to pick a debris removal company. And one of the things that I heard from the governor of Mississippi at the time, Haley Barbour, went through Katrina. And he called me on the night of the storm, as the storm was going on. He said, listen, you're not going to think about this, and I know you haven't thought about it because I've checked your state. Like, you don't have a debris removal contract preset. And he said, people are not going to even begin to feel normal till you remove the debris. He said, we didn't learn this in Mississippi till a little bit later. He said, but every time you drive down the street and people see their belongings from their whole life, they relive the trauma every time. And the quicker you can get rid of that stuff, the better off you're going to be. And so we brought in this company and we worked with the towns to get, and they did a great job. And the interesting thing that'll come out this week in some of this stuff is that there was a lot of discussion about that at the time, because we didn't bid the contract. We used the bid they had put in Connecticut, and it allowed us to do it right away. And what we found out in the aftermath was that we went much faster than New York in cleaning our debris, and we got it at about 2/3 of the price. And so Connecticut did a good job in bidding the contract. They were a good company, and there was a lot of politics involved in it. But at the end, in terms of the criticism, but in the end, the debris got removed, and it's amazing how quickly it got removed. I remember going through the bay on state police boats, and
They were pulling all kinds of
yeah.
stuff out.
full houses,
Yeah.
full
There were a
houses.
couple houses in Maniloking, right?
Maniloking, bobbing up and down in the water, and so you had to get cranes and other things out into the bay to get those things removed, and not to mention all the broken up debris.
That's how they got my boat afterwards. They came with a barge and chainsaws.
Yep.
And cut it up in pieces and then brought it to the street, most of it, but some of it they took away.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible. So now, how long did it take you to go through the whole process?
I've been back in my house 2 years already.
Okay,
So it really did go fast.
good.
I did change my pathway because I read the contract. You were actually 100,000 more than the man I hired.
See, that was
And
my
that
profit. I
was
was looking to make that.
I know.
You took my profit. I'm gonna have to get a job now when I get out of here.
I know. With an open checkbook, and I'm reading the
Yeah.
contract, I said, I don't think so. No,
Good.
no. So they said I could go B, and even the helipiles, they said, this is like for the Empire State Building. Whoever drew this up, you don't need all this. So
Great.
once I changed
And they
it
hired
all.
somebody local.
Yeah, it was actually Structural Solutions. I don't know if you heard
Yep,
of
I
them.
have.
A lot of people in this area did it,
Used
and
them.
I
That's
gotta
why we
say,
went
they
with
did a
them.
very, very good job.
Yeah.
That's
And it
great.
was one price, and he goes, if something comes up, it's on me, not you. And things have come up, and he took a beating on my house, but never complained, because I don't go back and say, well, it cost me, now it's gonna cost you. He's never done that.
It's great.
And it was
So
a
he made it-
benefit doing the local people, because they know,
Yep.
they know what the
Yeah.
codes are, they know what they have to do, they know,
And
so.
you use someone local also.
Yeah, Walters, in Barnegat, and they were great, and
Yep.
since they knew we were out of state, and, they knew it was me and my sister, we would get emails and calls and reports, and, when my dad would come by, they would let him look around and
How
whatever.
long was he out of his house?
In total, about 3 years.
Where
Yeah.
was he all that time?
He was over in Holiday City with a friend, so he wasn't that far away, but at times it felt like,
Yeah, felt like forever.
7 miles could feel like 70 sometimes, so
Yeah.
it was hard.
Well, you think about the size of what happened. I remember hearing about the week after that it was 365,000 homes were either completely destroyed or damaged to the point where they were not usable. And that happened in one day. 365,000 homes. I mean, you think about how massive that is, and trying to figure out, okay, how do you get people back? And the great thing is that, a lot of people had the means to be able to get themselves back, and they did it themselves, and they didn't have to bother with getting grants and all the rest of it. But the support that we're given to people who had to rent, like you were talking about, hotels, and then we got people apartments, and there's some people today who are still getting rental assistance from
Yeah,
us.
And then having to pay their mortgage payments on the place.
Yeah. Right? And their property taxes to Kelleher. Yeah, no. Well, he's got to make sure he is, and he's going to need the money. So, it's all that stuff is stuff that when you're sitting, when it first happens, you don't think about. But then the federal government says to you, all right, what programs do you, because they don't have the interesting thing about this is except for the very basics, the sheltering and some of the initial things, the federal government had no programs for this. So we started the rental assistance program, all these different things. We just came up with ideas and said, okay, will you fund this? Will you fund that? And that was really an interesting thing that now will be part of the plan for anybody going forward in the future. You see what's going on in Houston. I've spoken to the governor down there and what's going on in Puerto Rico, and I've spoken to all of them both of them a number of times. Say don't forget to ask for this, don't forget to ask for that, because if you don't ask, they're not offering most of the
We
time.
were the only state that's ever been approved to stabilize the taxes.
Oh, yeah?
So
Yep.
Was it a state thing or a local thing where you offered the $10,000 to
State.
stay in your
State.
house? It was a
State. Yeah, that was another program we just came up
Because
with.
that's what I said. I mean, everybody on the all the rumors going on. They said, like my neighbors were saying to me, your flood insurance is going to go up to $35,000 a year, and I'm like, if that's the case, you're going to have an abandoned
Massive
neighborhood,
exit.
right? And I was good because right after that, I was so depressed. I was like, I don't want to live anywhere near the water. I said, somebody offers me $150,000 for this house, I'm gonna go, But now I feel totally different about it now. But it was really depressing for a good few months until
Chuck's right.
things started happening.
We convinced the federal government. We said, listen, if you don't pay people to stay, a lot of them won't stay.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to have, you know, what happened in New Orleans.
Yes.
And because what they did in New Orleans was they just gave them checks. And then people left and they never came back. So we said the way you should do the program this time is we'll give you a check, but you got to promise you're going to stay
For 3 years. Yeah.
right? You got to stay for 3 years. We got that, the stabilization for taxes, where we got the federal government to pay money to Toms River and other towns that were losing so much off their tax rolls. All those things were things that we invented. They didn't exist before. But the REM thing was the hardest part because, you know, it's people's homes. It's the most personal thing to them.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know we're talking about REM, but the big thing for us too was in that time, like my father's mobility had gone down, and our big concern was how's he going to get up and down stairs. So we were able through the Sandy Access program to get a chairlift put in so that he can go up and down the stairs, and that was like our biggest thing. We're like, we're gonna lift this house, and what's he gonna just stay? Like he's not gonna be able to come downstairs, or he's not gonna be able.
That's a problem.
It was a
lot of places
huge
where
help.
The stairs, by the time you run
Right.
down, they're in the street and all
Right.
that.
Oh, well,
And
yeah.
we talked about a ramp, and they were
Yeah.
like, you can't do that, and that was also a huge help. And while we were building, and we met with them, and we said, what do we need to do? And they said, no, build your house. We will come in and we will put your chair. And it was a wonderful experience, and it's those resources. You know, that was, I mean, I give credit to my sister for being like kind of finding all these things, but you know, we had found that program, and that's a program that I feel like people don't, you know, especially here, there's a lot of seniors in Toms River, and that was a huge help for us.
It was, and we talked a lot about that because we knew that at the shore there were so many areas where they were predominantly seniors that if we're going to cause these houses to be raised, like how are people going to get in their homes?
Yeah.
Like how are they going to get there? And Tom's right too. You know, when they came to us, remember when they came to us with the initial heights they wanted. You know, we're like, well, in 2/3 of the towns, those stairs are going to be in the street.
Right.
Like, no, can't do that. We're going to have to come up with another plan. So a lot of this, what I don't think people, no matter how many times you would explain it, it's hard to get it through, is this is really incredibly unusual to like live through what we live through. And there's some of it you have to make up as you go along. There's some of it you just have to, okay, we'll try this. No, that doesn't work. All right, well, you get enough people complaining and you notice enough, then you change it. And like Path A, Path B were the perfect example of that, of what seemed like a good idea in the beginning because we were focused on what happened in New Orleans. Because you always like fight the last war, right?
Yeah.
So, right, okay, what we're going to make sure is there's not going to be fraud. There was so much fraud in Louisiana. We're not going to have the fraud, so we're going to approve all these contractors. But what we learned was we couldn't approve them fast enough. There weren't enough of them, and it clogged everything up. And a lot of the locals didn't want to get involved in that pre-approval process. They didn't want to get locked in. They wanted to do their own thing. So you learn, like, okay, so it took a while, and that wasn't the greatest thing. But I'm convinced if we had gone Path B first, and we'd have all the people stealing money, then people would be like, how are you allowing all these unscrupulous contractors in the state stealing my money? Like, okay. You know, so I think it turned out to be a decent mix, but it's a learning process.
After being finished, I would have preferred, myself, it took me the longest time to pick out a contractor. So I would have preferred if you would have picked it, you know, the state would have picked it out for me, just to show, you know, because it took us, a year and a half or two, because everybody was so different in prices. And I've heard so many stories on, like I said, the street of people who picked a contractor and then they just left with their money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to be stuck like that. So I was like, finally I talked to Lorraine, I think, and she said she was very happy with who she had. I had a couple more people on the street, had the same people. And I said, well, let's give him a shot. And he was fair, like you said. He said, this is the price. I don't care if I have to do more or whatever. This is what you're going to pay. And he did. He had to put new ductwork in for me. He had to put new plumbing underneath. Did that all included in the price, which wasn't part of the original price.
Yeah.
So,
now there was, and I think in the end, when the local folks stopped being overwhelmed, the contractors, they were able to get the work done.
Yeah.
At the beginning, they were so overwhelmed. There were so many people who needed help, and there were just not enough of them. There are just not enough of our local contractors, and the ones who came in from out of state, some of them were okay, but some of them weren't. And then we had some people in state who were stealing. They're the best stories. I got a call. This is just recently, probably in the last 6 or 8 months. I got a call on my radio show one night. You'll remember this, from a guy who's complaining to me. I still haven't gotten my money from Sandy. It's ridiculous. It's 4 years. You haven't kept your word. And the guy's just berating me. Okay, hold on. We're going to get your information. We'll look into it. So we get all of his information, and I send it, and I going to send it over to you, and then the Attorney General calls me, and he's like, "We know that guy is. He's a fraudster. He hasn't. He applied for all this stuff. He never had a house at the shore. He just used an address. Now imagine the chutzpah of that guy, right? Like, he calls my radio show to complain that his fraudulent grant has not yet been paid to him. It's like only in New Jersey, right? Like the guy's like, my fraudulent grant hasn't been paid yet, and I'm tired of waiting. And then we wound up arresting the guy like 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, the Attorney General's like, I'm real close. I'm almost done getting the case ready. So don't have the office respond and don't say anything. And don't say anything publicly. I'm all right. You know, and I remember the day that the press release came out, the guy was arrested. I'm like, I came home to Mary Pat, I'm like, read this press release. And she's reading it. She's like, yeah, so? And I go, the guy called the radio show 2 weeks ago to complain he hadn't gotten his grant yet. So this stuff was like, it was a whole new world for us, like it was a whole new world for you, and trying to figure out exactly how to make it work. But I think now, when I see what's happening in Texas in particular, Puerto Rico's a bit of a different circumstance because their infrastructure was so bad going into it that they have bigger problems than either us or Texas will have ever had. But they're following a lot of the things that we did and are finding that it's working. And what's happening is HUD is now a little bit more used to it because they did it with us. And so now they're willing to do that too. So hopefully the folks who have gotten whacked in Houston are having a little bit of an easier time.
I mean, one of the problems we had 1,000 people in the shelters at the high schools, mainly from the Barrier Island. When the people left, they pretty much left with the shirt on their back in the morning. And we had to tell people, can we go back? And we say, where do you live? And we look at the aerial maps and say, there's no house there anymore. We had counselors just helping people.
Oh yeah.
You had the whole island closed off for what, a month or two, where nobody was allowed to go over there.
Word a little bit about bad guys, but there wasn't that much left to steal because of the damage.
And the fires. I mean, remember the fires too. Then
right,
that was one of the
fort, that little thing in the middle of like Midway.
And they were bouncing all over the place on the Barrier Island. The fires. When I flew over on that Wednesday with the president in Marine One, he said to me, "What are all the fires going on down there?" And I said that gas fires burning down. And he said, well, he goes, well, why aren't you putting them out? And I said, because one, I can't get equipment onto the island, and two, the other gas fires. Like, and then eventually that Friday we made the decision to turn the gas off. But that was a huge $100+ million decision because the minute you turn the gas off, condensation gets in the pipes, and you have to reline everything.
That was the rumor that we wouldn't have gas back over there for like a year or
something. They did an amazing job.
Got it back quick.
Yeah, New Jersey Resources did a great job. But I remember calling in the CEO of New Jersey Resources on that. I called him and said, Larry, I need you to turn the gas off. And he's like, Governor, this is going to be an enormously expensive decision for us, and we think we can control it. And I had, at that moment, as been reported, I had very little patience for a lot of this stuff. And I just said, listen, just come down here. I was at the Emergency Operations Center in Trenton. And I said, just come down here, and I'll talk to you about it when you get down here. And one of the great little laws we have in the state that got put in a long time ago called the Disaster Control Act. And if the governor invokes the Disaster Control Act, you pretty much can do anything you want. And so we invoked it, and for obvious reasons. And this guy comes down here, and I had no time. I mean, I felt like forget a one-arm paper hanger, right? And so I'm wondering from one room to the next of the meetings, and one of my guys grabs me and says, "Oh, Larry Downs is in, this room over here." Okay, so I walk in and I go, "Listen, it's pretty easy, okay? Either I'm going to shut the gas off or you're going to shut the gas off." I said, "If I shut the gas off, you're going to look like a goat, and if you shut it off, you're going to look like a hero. You decide which way you want it, but I want a decision in 15 minutes." And I walked out of the room, and that was it. It was at the end of the meeting. Like boom, done. He did. He pulled the big red handle about an hour later, and that was it. And it stopped burning houses down. But we had the problems with that. I got on the Barrier Island that Friday, and I still have the pictures on my phone. It was like a horror show. It was like being on the set of a horror show.
First morning I got over there when the water went down on Pelican Island, and as we started to go up Route 35, I was with the officers, and we couldn't go. There was sand in the streets,
houses in the middle of the street.
The bay had
where do you even begin?
big sinkholes in the.
And talk about the gas. There's an absolutely strong smell of gas because as the houses got ripped off, the foundations of gas kept going. Normally you can go to the curb with a wrench and turn it over. You'd never find it because of the
No.
2 foot of sand.
No, and sand, the sand and the debris from the homes, and you couldn't find any of the shutoffs. It was really incredible. And I remember being there and with the National Guard when we sent the National Guard down here to protect from looters, because then, bad guys started coming in on boats. To come in and loot houses, and they got met by like a bunch of National Guard guys with rifles and bayonets. So that got them back on the boat and back away. But all those things you don't think about, all of those individual things that you have to worry about at the time, and people getting ripped off, and you don't want to see that in a number of ways.
You still have to run the rest of the state with all the other.
Yeah, they didn't stop. Yeah, New Jersey
Transit.
Transit, they were really happy.
Did they ever do the dunes? I know.
The dunes are now finally getting done. I got an email the other day that I thought I would never get. That we finally have all of the easements now in Point Pleasant, Bay Head, and Manahawkin.
Okay,
Who had been
good.
fighting us for 5 years.
I would hate to see that
The
happen.
other day up in Manahawkin with, I guess maybe some of your people.
Yep, for
and the
DP.
Army Corps. And Orkney Beach has a curve in it, and it was just devastating. The news media referred to that as ground zero of Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah.
We facetiously thought this spring that we'd sell beach badges for half price for standing room only. But in July they came in and did like a temporary fix for us. Thank God it got us by. Then of course you have people complain they have to walk too far.
Too far to get the water.
Why'd you make it so wide? But this will be great. So the dunes in the northern part of Ocean County, so from Point Pleasant down to Island Beach State Park, will be done before the next hurricane season. So that means that all the entire coastline will now have the dune system where we needed it. So that'll all be done. And that was an amazing opportunity because the federal government usually makes you pay anywhere from 20 to 35% of those projects. And they picked up the whole cost.
Wow.
So, it's a $1.3 billion project to get all that done, but it'll be done. And if you look at the places that had dunes for Sandy,
Saved the town.
yeah.
Seaside Park was one of them. They had huge dunes.
Huge dunes, and you saw what happened in Seaside Park. It really
Didn't
didn't look
anything,
like much.
except the bay side got
Yeah,
hit like they
yeah.
always do,
Yep.
but the ocean side
That's
didn't
normal,
get
as
anything.
they say.
Yep.
Yeah, that floods on a, just a regular.
Regular rainy day
Yeah.
that floods over there. But you're right. I mean, you look at the destruction that you saw on the beach side in the Heights, or that you saw in Bay Head or Manahawkin or Point Pleasant. I mean, it was nothing like Seaside Park looked
Yeah,
like.
even
an
look at
oasis.
Midway Beach, those tiny little houses, and they got nothing.
Nothing. I mean, it's amazing.
I thought they were gonna be in the bay.
Yeah.
I thought so too. I figured, I just assumed Midway Beach is probably wiped off the
Especially
map.
up
And
in our northern beaches too, but if you go up the highway, you can look and there's a slight grade that goes up toward the beach, and that made it different. You got all those little Ocean Beach 1, 2,
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me come by and talk to you.
oh, no pleasure.
Appreciate
My
it. And I'm
brother.
glad that your families are back. You and your families are back where you need to be.
Yeah.
That was the whole intent of this all along. And I remember talking to the mayor of Biloxi and asking him how long it took them to recover after I was about a year into Sandy. And he said, we haven't yet. And they were, at that point, 7 years post Katrina. So, you're never completely satisfied with anything, but after 5 years, I think we're in pretty good shape. And then we got some great reports today from the credit rating agencies. I'm sure you saw them for your town and others that, they feel like the shore is now fully recovered.
Yeah.
Economically and from a resilience perspective, that it's stronger than it was before. Another storm came, they're better prepared for it. So it's all the stuff we were attempting to accomplish. So,
Well, like kicking the teeth was right after Sandy, then the fire on the boardwalk. I'm watching it from my deck right
the
over there. I'm
fire.
watching it go, and I'm watching it also on
what
the
a great
news.
day that was.
I'm like, I think I was there like the next day, and I saw you on the boardwalk. I mean, I didn't meet you or anything, but I saw you.
When we were in the ironic thing was we were sitting in a Sandy meeting.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how it happened. We're sitting in the Sandy meeting in my office, and my phone goes off for a text message, and I look, and it's a member of the national media who says to me, what are you doing about the fire on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights? So I text back and go, what fire on the boardwalk? And he says, there's a fire on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights. And so I say to one of the guys, go out and find out. Like, is there a fire going on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights? So one of them leaves. They come back and they go, yeah, it's totally under control, no problem. Oh, okay. So I text back to this national media guy, oh, they told me it's under control. He texts back, he goes, I am watching it on TV right now, and it is anything but under control. So I turn on people and go, would you please go and find out what the hell's going on? And so then they come back in and they go, we have a big problem. So we all left the Sandy meeting, got in our cars and drove to Seaside, and the boardwalk had been rebuilt, right? And I forget how many millions of dollars we spent on the boardwalk. And the state fire marshal is there waiting for me. And he says to me, okay, Governor, this is your call. And I said, okay, what's the call? He goes, well, because the fire's spreading, the winds are blowing from this direction. He said, I think the best way to stop the spread of the fire for burning the whole boardwalk down, he said, is to cut the boardwalk in half. And just, I said, we're going to wreck the boardwalk on purpose? And he's like, well, he looks at me and goes, well, we're not, you are, if you make that decision. And so I asked him again, he's like, no, I really think it's the best way. Otherwise, we could wind up losing everything on the boardwalk. So we had people doing the beginnings of a beach restoration project. We had them run one of those front loaders down the beach to Seaside, and then come in from the beach side and ram through and cut in half the boardwalk. And I sat there watching, like, I cannot believe I am watching this. This is like a year later almost, and I can't even believe it. It did. It stopped the fire. He was right. I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm going to break the boardwalk apart. I said, if this doesn't work.
It was another big red handle moment for
you have a serious issue on your hands, buddy. If this doesn't work, you and I are going down together. The ship's not going down alone. So, yeah, the fire was incredible. So thank you for taking the time and doing this. We appreciate it. I think it's important for people to know how you all are doing. And we're going to do a lot of stuff this week in the media and otherwise to let people know that New Jersey's back, and it's because the people here, like all of you, have all your great individual stories about how you kind of worked within and around the system to get it done. People forget all the time, like that's part of what makes things work. It's how tough are the people and how persistent are they, like your sister, right? And and who's reading their contracts and who isn't.
Read those contracts.
That's right, So we appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great to meet you.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks for having me in your home.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.